around 10 years back, I made a decision to go sober, completely cold turkey sober. I was smoking every day. I was popping pills on a daily basis. I was drinking when basically we could get our hands on some drink because we were young when we started, around 14, 15 years old. And by the time I was 19, I call it quits because I could see that this life was leading to something that I could not reverse. And sure enough, that was the case because a lot of the dudes I called my brothers, matter of fact, 3 of the 5 guys who I called my day ones, my brothers, are no longer here, right? They didn't make it out on the other side. And so, I've done all I can to wean myself of all addictions, all chemical dependencies. And around 21, I made a decision to cut out corn from my life. That one was a game changer for me, right? Besides getting off the drugs, getting off of the corn tub, y'all can translate for yourselves. Getting off of the spicy content, that's another word I've heard used for it, was a powerful decision that gave me back my power. And then the final decision was to get off of sugar, which again is just another commonly accepted drug, right? So I've got myself off of all these dependencies, and it's given me a sense of power, like true power, not me having power over somebody else. That's not true power. That's control, and control is a sign of weakness. If you feel the need of control over anybody else, that's weakness. But I feel a sense of inner strength, of resilience, of knowing who I am. My girl has been the one who has injected that word resilience into my vocabulary. So shout out to you, babe. But I now found myself in a place where I discovered an addiction that I never knew existed. As a matter of fact, it was such a subtle addiction that I had perpetuated throughout my entire life that, I was almost willing to let it pass until I recognized that it was the final straw. It was the last thing that was holding me back from everything that I wanted. Every time I would get momentum in my life, I would start putting out my music. I would start putting out this content. Things were hidden. I'm having people doing TikTok dances with my music in the background. I'm having these videos going off. I'm having short form content going viral. I'm having, the spikes in growth, etc. I'm making more money than I ever have from doing what I love to do. And all of a sudden, I found myself in these 2-3 day cycles of just consuming endless content, not creating, not doing anything productive, going to sleep late. I'm talking about late. Like I'm a dude who goes to sleep at 10, right? I'm that guy. 9:30 at the very, very best, but usually around 10. I'll be asleep. I'm knocked out. I'm done. No alarm clock. I'm waking up early in the morning. I'm doing my thing, right? Like right now, I'm filming this. It's our first true rainy day in a very, very long time. So shout out to the rain because it's been hot as hell out here. 50 days of 100-degree weather is what it's been out here. So shout out to the rain, right? But nevertheless, I'm that guy. I like to live a life where I'm drinking plenty of water. I'm not perfect, but I understand that these things are going to optimize my own life. And that's something I value most, okay? I do my best to do my best when it comes to myself. But I did not understand that there was an addiction that was almost even more powerful than the rest that I had been feeding into the entirety of my life. And it gotten progressively worse throughout time. And the drug was more accessible than ever. And that drug is information. Now, this may sound crazy to you. You've probably never heard this. And the reason is because it just popped up in my head, right? I made it up in essence. I made it up, but I didn't make it up. We live in the age of information. I remember when we were getting into the social media age, etc., and my pops would always say, like, this is the information age, this is the information age, right? And I thought I understood what that meant. I was like, okay, yeah, we have access to plenty of information, we can get our hands on information, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm realizing on the other side of this severe addiction is that information is life. Life is nothing more than a transference, than a passing back and forth of information. Life is simply that. Now, we talk about, mental conditioning or mental programming, right? That is nothing more than stored information. We talk about even trauma. Trauma is stored information. When we talk about communication is back and forth information, the interpretation of information. So when we talk about consuming content, you and I having this conversation. Well, it's not even a conversation, right? It's more of a monologue. You are consuming information. You are digesting and processing information. That's what's taking place here. Now, you could think to yourself that, surely you can't be addicted to information. Well, I'll tell you this. Your first addiction was the one to information, and it's actually not a bad thing. I believe it is a natural part of the human being to have a level of an appetite for information. Now, if we go into the story of Adam and Eve, right? The earliest quote unquote story of humanity, which if you believe in it, that's on you, right? That's between you. If you're not about to be in my comment section and have a back and forth with me that it's a real story, okay? I'm gonna use it as allegory, as analogy. So the story of Adam and Eve, it was a story of a thirst for information outside of the information that they currently had. Here's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Do you want to know more? Right? It's clickbait. The story of Adam and Eve is the original clickbait. Do you want to know more? Here's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Whew, that's a bar right there. That's a bar. And so we find ourselves in that very same place where we now have access to all the information that we could have access to. I can't even fathom how we could get to a place where there is more information we're consuming, because at this point in history, there is nothing that is sacred anymore, quote unquote. There's nothing that is hidden from us anymore. We can literally tune into the other side of the planet and what's going on there in real time right now. Transference of information. But what I want to talk about is the addiction to information and how it leads us to getting the very opposite of what we want out of life. I don't care what you say. You can be one of these eat the rich people. You can be one of these evil rich people are bad and I don't care about money. Money means nothing. You can be one of those people who perpetuates those stories. I'm not that guy, okay? I'm not that guy. I believe that the only way we can change things in a material world where there is currency and there's an exchange in the free market, the only way is through currency. So why, as a good person, quote unquote, because we claim ourselves to be the good person and they're the bad one, right? As a good person, why would you not want to be wealthy so you can take care of people? So again, I believe that most of us are just lying to ourselves. We tell ourselves this because we believe we can have what we desire, right? And that often turns into judgment. It turns into envy, which is I want to have what you have, or it turns into jealousy, which is I don't want you to have what you have. These are the facts. I'm just the messenger. So if you're somebody who is looking to create any level of financial freedom, even financial security, yet you're consuming information that is contradicting that very same belief system, how under heaven and earth are you going to create wealth with a consciousness that is telling you that wealth is evil, wealth is bad, wealth doesn't matter, or money doesn't matter? Like imagine trying to cultivate a relationship with a certain somebody, and the message that you give them day in, day out is you don't matter, you're evil. Just think about that. If I was to, anybody, even a stranger, if I was to come up to a stranger and say you don't matter, that person is probably not going to have a certain affection towards me. They could be a complete stranger. They might just laugh, right? But there's not going to be, oh, wow, like that's a true connection. I want to get to know this guy right here. Absolutely not. And yet we believe it's any different with any other aspect of our lives. We consume this content about all the woes in the world, all the problems in the world, everything, every injustice in the world. And then we wonder why we can never seem to just be in control of our own lives. Like, why does it feel like I'm powerless? We think it's the chicken and the egg. Like we think, it's the egg as opposed to the chicken, or the chicken as opposed to the egg. We think the reason I am powerless is because of the systems. We're not thinking that the reason you are powerless is because you're feeding into powerlessness. Then you're going outside of yourself to confirm it. So it's a confirmation bias there. You already have a belief that you're powerless. The belief is what is controlling the way in which you are engaging with life, the information that you're engaging with and that you're internalizing. So if you are raised to believe that you're powerless, because it starts, in infancy, the first core belief systems that are ingrained at the earliest stages of life, you're taught to believe in scarcity, right? There is not enough. And, When some have, others don't have, which is a complete flawed premise. Anybody who understands basic economics understands that it's not a zero-sum game in that fashion. But anyway, let us continue. If one has, another does not have, is your belief, okay? Lack, scarcity. So therefore, if I'm to ever have, I'm taken away from somebody. And you're also programmed to say, I'm a terrible person if, I create wealth because I'm taken from somebody. These are all beliefs, mind you. These aren't truths. These are beliefs. These are ways of thinking. This is information that is stored. So you now go through life. Let's say you get your first job, second job, whatever it is, and you find yourself always at the bottom of the barrel or not getting the opportunity or staying in the very stagnant places. Maybe you want to rise up, but for some reason you can't. You will blame a system. You'll say, I'm just not getting a promotion because the system's unfair. No, the reason you're not getting the promotion, the reason why your business ain't taking off or whatever it may be, is because the information you're consuming is going to validate your belief system. Everything in life is geared towards validating how you identify. Identity is the most important conversation, but it's not the identity we've been used to talking about. It's not about your skin color. It's not about your sexual preference. It's not about your gender. It has nothing to do with that, and it has everything to do with your identity as far as how you see yourself. How do you perceive yourself? What is your self-concept? What's your self-image? Right? We talk about, you attract what you desire, you attract what you want. No, you don't attract what you desire. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you are is not what we see, quote unquote, right? It's more than meets the eye. What you are is how you perceive yourself. If I see myself as deserving of a healthy relationship, that's my conviction, then I cannot help but get myself into that dynamic. But so long as I believe that, there's no good, women out there, you can't trust women, and I will perpetuate, even if I was to meet the best woman, even if I was to have met, my girl right now, my soulmate, if I had met her in a place where I didn't have a container for her, which was, I essentially had a belief system that contradicted this healthy relationship, I would find a way to sabotage that relationship. And so that happens for a majority of people. Well, man can't get ahead. Times are just rough. The economy, the government, the shadow government. Again, I'm not saying these aren't factors. I'm not saying they're not real. I'm just saying that the information we consume is going to be validating our belief system, or it's going to create a belief system or perpetuate one that's already there. And if we have a flawed or a warped belief system that's not giving us the results we want out of life, and we continue to feed that fire, I promise you, you will continue to live the very same life. It will feel like Groundhog's freaking day. I promise you that. Why? It seems like I just try to get into a relationship, but it's so hard out there. Yeah, of course. And that's why anybody who wants to be in control of you is going to make sure that you believe that you have no control over your own life. That's going to be the baseline programming, because they understand that once you believe or know that you're empowered, that you do have power over your own physical experience, the moment you recognize that, it's over. Their game is over. It's done. Nobody can control you if you're not willing to hand your control over to them. They understand that whoever's trying to be in control, a shadow government, the elite society, or, the Illuminati, the damn puppet masters, whoever, the gatekeepers, they understand that as soon as you recognize you don't need them, like I've seen the shift happen in music. Everybody used to believe that you needed a major label, and there's a lot who still do. They still believe in the machine. And, the machine has made itself seem like a machine. It's like, oh, you do need us. You have nothing with us. We have all the resources, and, we can blacklist you. We can blackmail you. We can blah, blah. They've created this entire ecosystem. Yet the one who doesn't step into the ecosystem or steps out and empowers themselves is the one who frees themselves and creates a career that they want to create for themselves, right? Now we have independent artists who are coming out showing y'all that they're making even more money than a lot of the, your favorite, quote unquote, mainstream artists. Why is that? Simple. Because they have taken their power back in a real way. Not just a little cute quote on Pinterest or IG or something like that. Take back your power. Now I'm talking about the real version, which is they stop blaming a system. They stop blaming their mama. They stop blaming, the government. They stop blaming the corporation. Again, should we hold these folks accountable? Absolutely. Speak truth to power? Absolutely. But then what? It's like the big pharma thing, right? Big pharma is doing this, that. I believe big pharma has created a multitude of these quote unquote disorders that we have bought into, and then we are now medicating things that actually never existed. I do have that belief. Am I saying everything is false? Absolutely not. Am I saying these psychoses can't be then created and generated? Absolutely not. But what I do know is when we have that conversation, right, and when we reveal the hidden hand, we must also do something about it, which is not to go outside and protest, because that's not going to do anything. The greatest protest is to stop paying them. The greatest protest is to get healthy and to not need their medications. That's the best thing, to put them out of business, at least at an individual level. You might not take them out completely, because there's going to be every Tom, Dick, and Harry who's going to continue to go to the drugstore to do what they do. But you can choose to opt out of that system. If you believe the corporation is so bad, then stop opting in. You know, it was incredible for me when I used to see these like baristas at Starbucks talking about their CEO at the time, Howard Schultz, the creator of Starbucks, or the founder of what we now know as Starbucks, right? He didn't found the first one. It was actually, I think it was Pete's, was it? Because basically he was a marketer. He found these two guys who had this little coffee shop, fell in love with the coffee shop, had this idea to not just make it a coffee cellar, but to make it a sit-down cafe, you know, like something he had seen in Europe. They didn't want to do the idea. They didn't want to expand, and he did. So he said, I want to buy this place from you. So he stacked up his money and bought that one location and scaled. And it was an uphill journey for this guy. Believe you me, like he ran out of money multitudes of times building this thing up. So now, you know, Starbucks is one of the biggest chains in the world. And yet there are those who are now employed by Starbucks who, you know, are talking about how it's so unfair how the CEO is making 50 million or whatever the hell he was making. It doesn't matter if he's making $1 billion. He's the one who took the risk to start the company. That's what logic says in my medulla oblongata, right? You wouldn't have a job if that individual didn't make the decisions he did 30, 25 years ago. That's how I see it. That's the truthful. Outside of the victim complex, right? It's not saying I don't have some sense of, you know, empathy or whatever it may be. If that's how you view it, then that's your view. But it's just common sense to say, well, you technically wouldn't have this job, right? So whatever he pays himself is what he pays himself. No, but we're only making, you know, 17, 20. It's like, yeah, what's better, making $17 or $0? Because you would be making zero if he had never created the company. And if you have a problem with the company, then you can quit. Like, we live, at least on this side of the world, is what I know. I was born in Zimbabwe, which is considered the third world. But I've lived in the U.S. for a majority of my life. And one thing I've noticed about this place is, like, you can quit a job. Like, you can leave a place. Now, maybe it's terrifying. You got this and that. I got this car note and that did it and this house. Yeah, sure. But the reality is you could still leave. So your complaining is showing that you actually don't have a big enough problem with what you're, you know, saying is such a huge problem. Because if it was truly a problem, you would leave. If you truly hated this corporation, you wouldn't be working for them, or you wouldn't be paying for their services. Oh, Amazon is so evil, buys their product. Apple is so evil, buys their product. These are the facts. And I am a conduit of these facts. So, again, information is everything. And again, our hatred even for, or our envy and jealousy over wealthy or whoever it may be is based upon information. It's based upon our addiction to these, you know, I made a video recently called, like, why conspiracy theories are ruining your life. The fear-based consciousness, the fear-based programming that we feed into is going to perpetuate the very same frustration, the very same misery. It's like keeping the quote-unquote masses at odds against each other, as opposed to you seeing yourself as an individual who can create your own. And when you create your own, you have the influence to create for others. If you can't even do for yourself, you can't do for nobody else. That's why I'm not into activism. Like, oh, I'm about to go save the world. But what about your own room? I might have to make a whole damn video about that. Like, if I was to go into your room right now, is your room clean? Is your house clean? Your apartment clean? Do you have an apartment? Right? Before you go out and save the world, have you taken care of home base? So, that's my 2 cents on the subject. I might do a part 2 of this one because it's a deep subject, and it's one that is, I'm confronting on a daily basis because I'm very much weaning myself off of information and the solution for me has been, instead of being a consumer, be a creator. That's why I've been putting out prolific content. If I have ideas, I need to watch that. Okay, go create that then. Go create that piece of content. Go create that quote. Go create whatever it is. When you become a creator, you're stepping out of the consumer mentality. And there's a natural shift because we are creators, and there's an aspect that consumes. We consume food, we consume oxygen, etc., of course. But when it's information, is this information going to serve me? And if not, then I need to channel my energy into something that is more productive and more fulfilling and more fruitful. Something that's going to produce something as opposed to stripping something or draining me of my life force. Period.
I used to be afraid of the dark, a place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light.